Welcome back to the Rollout. I'm Jeff Pratt, and joining me, as always, is Trent Henrich. How's it going, Trent?
I am excited. It is week one for the NFL, ready to get into it.
Absolutely, man. And you know what? That's what we're going to do today. We're going to get right into it. We are starting a weekly series where Trent and I are going to make our picks for every game of that week. We've got, 16 games slated for week one, starting with the Texans and the Chiefs on Thursday night. Trent, who are you taking?
I got to roll with the Chiefs. Yes, Deshaun Watson just got his huge contract, and maybe the Texans and Brandon Cooks will fit, but it does not matter. I don't think what the Texans throw out week one. I think the Chiefs, are already meshed so well together that it's going to be a disadvantage for Hopkins not being on the Texans, and Watson won't have that connection, so he's going to get off to a slow start, I think, and the only reason maybe the Texans could give the Chiefs trouble is just because of what happened last year, and they just want payback. They were up 24-0 and then lose by 20 points. So maybe they get some fire burning under them to try to get that upset win. But I don't see the Chiefs losing this week.
Yeah, I'm with you there pretty much for the same reasons. Something to keep in mind, too, is that Brandon Cooks is limited with a quad injury right now. He didn't practice today, limited yesterday, was limited all throughout training camp, really. So as you were saying, Trent, he really hasn't been able to build that rapport with Deshaun Watson yet. And that's just another injury to add to Brandon Cooks' long resume. Obviously, concussions are really the more serious things, but, I've dealt with quad injuries before. Trent knows that very well. Throughout high school, they're tricky. They don't just go away in a matter of days. There's something you have to consistently rehab. So I'm taking the Chiefs as well. Moving on to the next matchup, we have a great one: Seahawks Falcons. Trent, I'll let you take it.
Yeah, I actually like both of these teams this season. I think they're going to outperform their projections as of right now. I think that's something interesting for this season is that I think home field advantage may be less of a factor than it has in years past. So I think that's an advantage for the Seahawks in this matchup, going to Atlanta to play the Falcons. I think that Russell Wilson is finally going to seriously get some consideration as MVP, and I think it starts week one. He's going to come out of the gate hot. I don't think Josh Gordon will be a factor week one. I know they just signed him. I don't think he's going to get any touches or any routes run. But I think we're going to see a really good Russell Wilson with a strong connection with DK Metcalf after that first season.
Yeah, these are two teams that, Trent, I think we're both really high on, as you said earlier, this season. And just for the sake of disagreeing with you, I am going to take the Falcons. I love Matt Ryan. He's just perennially a really solid quarterback, throws the ball a ton, and I just love their wide receiver core as well. Obviously, Julio Jones is my favorite receiver in the game right now. In my opinion, the best receiver in the game. Sorry, Michael Thomas fans and DeAndre Hopkins fans, considering he just got paid to be the number one wide receiver in the league. I also love Calvin Ridley. Hayden Hurst, I believe, can come in and really just pick up where Austin Hooper left off. And Todd Gurley, obviously, is just out for vengeance this year as well. So I'm going to take the Falcons, but I wouldn't be surprised to see the Seahawks win either. That's going to be a very entertaining matchup. Moving on to the next game, we have a not-so-entertaining matchup from the NFC East in the Eagles and the Washington football team. Trent, are we both picking the Eagles here? Can we just say that? Even though they're pretty beat up, I'll say that. Deshaun Jackson is going to be their wide receiver one. Miles Sanders is still pretty limited. So is there any chance at all that the Washington football team comes out here and steals this game?
I think there is a chance just because we don't know what year two Dwayne Haskins, is. He could be a lot better than last year, maybe a lot more of a consistent quarterback. But I do agree with what you first said. The Eagles will win this game. It would have to be the Dwayne Haskins, Terry McLaurin connection to really upset the Eagles defense and steal the game.
Yeah, absolutely agree. So we're going to both take Philly there. Moving on, we have an interesting one, Trent. This one's going to test your loyalty as a Patriots fan this year. We have the New England Patriots going up against your team this season, the Miami Dolphins. And I'll start this off. I think the Patriots are going to win this game. Bill Belichick is just going to outcoach Brian Flores. I know that we have had problems with the Dolphins in past, but Cam Newton coming out for blood. As you said earlier, he's coming at your neck this season. He's going to play, with that aggression to prove he is the guy again. I think really what's interesting here is that the Dolphins have arguably the best cornerback duo in the league. They signed Byron Jones for the rest of the year, or not, sorry, they signed Byron Jones this offseason, and I'm a little distracted because we got that notification that Von Miller might be out for the season, so that's tough for the Broncos, a team that we both like this year. But moving on, back to the Dolphins, they brought in Byron Jones, and one of them is going to cover Julian Edelman out of the slot. And then N'Keal Harry is the de facto number 2 for the Patriots this year. So I think a lot of this game relies on if he's ready to take that next step. Obviously, Sony Michel's still a little banged up. So I will say, Trent, I have a feeling you might take the Dolphins in this one. And I would understand if you do. I just think the Patriots are going to outplay them.
No, I'm taking the Patriots.
Okay.
I mean,
All right.
I'm a Patriots fan at heart. I mean, yeah, the Dolphins may give them more trouble than people probably expect. I mean, they've given them trouble in years past, and they've upgraded their defense, like you were saying. I mean, they spent a lot of money this offseason to really try to make maybe a wild card push, as I mentioned. Who knows? But Cam Newton is not Tom Brady, and he hasn't really faced anyone and doesn't have that rivalry like Brady did with the Dolphins and have those struggles. I don't think that's a issue for Newton yet, and I think Newton's going to come out, be unfazed, and want to make his mark, show everyone that he is the quarterback for this team, quarterback for the future of this team, and he's the quarterback he used to be, or somewhat of the quarterback he used to be. So yeah, I'm taking the Pats here as well.
All right. So after 1/4 of the way through the schedule, we disagree on one, and it was a highly contested Seahawks and Falcons game. To get into the second half of the first half of this game, the game slated, we have the Packers versus the Vikings, another really strong game.
Yeah, Packers Vikings is definitely an interesting one. I think that it's going to be weird seeing the Vikings without Kevin Stefanski. I'm not sure how their offense really changes. I mean, I think it has to shift a bit to fit their new scheme. But I'm going to go with Week 1 Aaron Rodgers. I think that the Packers defense is still really strong. And even though Rodgers may not have that many weapons, I don't think this is going to be a very high scoring game. I think we're seeing two really good defenses go up against each other. But I think that the Vikings are going to have trouble. I think they've had trouble in years past early on in the season. And I think that, Aaron Rodgers, he still, even when he was playing the Bears last year, Week 1, he clutched out that first game of the season. I think he'll probably do the same thing here. I think it's a low scoring affair. Probably only maybe 2 touchdowns out of the Packers, but it could be enough.
Yeah, that's interesting. Trent, I think that this game is going to be a battle of the role players. Obviously, Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers are both very good quarterbacks. Rodgers is better, but Dalvin Cook is a slightly better running back than Aaron Jones. They somewhat cancel each other out. Devontae Adams and Adam Thielen are both really dominant number 1 receivers. But then you look past those major players on both of these teams, who steps up? Is it Justin Jefferson for the Vikings? Is it Alan Lazard for the Packers? And I think that the story of this game is going to be who is able to take that next step and solidify themselves as a weapon for one of these two teams. And that is really going to be a precursor for the season, and it's going to decide who wins this game. For me, I do think Justin Jefferson is going to have a big game against this Packers defense, although they are pretty tough, as you said. I think Dalvin Cook's going to have a great game as well. I'm taking the Vikings, so we'll disagree there as well.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, moving on, we have a not so entertaining matchup again, the Colts against the Jaguars. Trent, I'm interested to see if you give the Jaguars the edge here, because I think that's absolutely ridiculous. I'll just say this. The Colts are going to win this game. They're more talented all throughout their entire roster. Sorry, Phillip Rivers is still a better quarterback than Gardner Minshew, except for maybe their wide receiver 1. I love DJ Chark, just as you do. I'm going to give the Colts the edge here.
I'm going to give 2 picks for this game. 2 picks.
Oh, my God.
I think the Colts win, but the Jaguars recover the 7.5 spread. I think it's going to be a close game. But I think the difference will be a vet Phillip Rivers versus a young Gardner Minshew. I think Gardner Minshew does have a good game. But also, we really don't know what the Jags are going to do when they're out of their backfield yet, because I'm pretty sure Armstead is hurt or something. I think there's something going on maybe with his contract. I don't know what's going on,
He has
but
COVID, so or he's on the list. I'm not sure he actually have it, but he's on the list. I think I'm trying to remember who was named their number one
probably
starter.
Chris Thompson,
It wasn't
right?
no, it wasn't him. Divine Ezigbo was their number two option. It was some dude who realistically hadn't heard much about. But obviously, depth chart doesn't mean anything. Divine Ezigbo still could be their guy. Chris Thompson's probably the only valuable fantasy asset outside of DJ Chark if you look at it from that perspective. But yeah, Jaguars not looking so great this week and this season in general.
It'll be interesting to see, though. I really thought that they were going to sign Devontae Freeman either end of last week, beginning of this week, and it hasn't happened yet. I think that's something to still keep an eye out. I mean, he wouldn't be a factor for this week anyways, but for going forward, I think that the Jaguars will need to sign a running back, and Devontae Freeman wouldn't be a bad fit.
Yeah, and I do think Devontae Freeman at this point is just waiting out a week because there are going to be injuries. He's expecting a high-profile guy to go down and kind of open up a spot for him. If that doesn't happen, maybe he goes back to Jacksonville, says, all right, I'll play for you guys for a little bit less money than I was expecting because he's met with a couple teams now and he hasn't signed. So it clearly shows he still thinks he's worth a solid amount of money or he wants a specific role with the team. Jacksonville is probably the place where he could carve out the largest workload for himself, but we'll see how that works out.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. We have the Bears and the Lions.
See, for me, I love the Lions this year. I'm definitely going with the Lions. Matt Stafford's back. He's healthy. He's ready to go. Kenny Galladay connection. We know what, what Matthew Stafford did with TJ Hawkinson at the beginning of that first week last year. TJ Hawkinson really broke out and then kind of slowed down. So I'm interested to see if, Stafford has that much of an effect on how well TJ Hawkinson plays in the NFL. And another thing is their defense. I mean, they drafted Jeff Okudah so early in the draft. It's a high-profile cornerback to add to a pretty good defense already. I think the Lions are just going to be way too much for the Bears to handle, and I just dislike the Bears a lot.
Yeah, I was actually leading the Bears in this game, and then I saw that Mitch Trubisky was named the starting quarterback for them. So I'm just not sure they can get it done, man. And David Montgomery is probably going to miss this game. Even if he plays, he's going to be limited. So their one real strength besides Allen Robinson on offense is just immediately taken away if he doesn't play. So I'm with you there, Trent. I do think the Lions are going to come out strong. They have a very talented roster. I mean, we'll just see if they can finally put it together this year.
Yeah, and like I said, it's perfect matchup for them week one to get their footing playing the Bears.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we have another high-profile matchup here. The Ravens versus the ever-talented yet not so successful Cleveland Browns. I'll start things off here, Trent. I'm actually going to go with Cleveland here. And yes, that might be because I'm somewhat of a Cleveland homer. Half my family's from Cleveland, but I just think this roster is extremely talented. Baker Mayfield seems to have really begun to establish a rapport with OBJ. He has a great rapport with Austin Hooper. Reportedly, Jarvis Landry's healthy. They just extended Kareem Hunt, which shows their intentions to use him as a main part of their offense this year. Nick Chubb is arguably a top 10, top 5 running back in the league from a pure talent perspective. This team is just stacked on the offensive end, and they're not bad on the defensive end either. I think that Lamar Jackson and the Ravens come out a little flat this year, struggle to find their footing. I have the Browns taking this game.
Yeah, I don't think the Ravens are going to, struggle to find their footing, especially Lamar Jackson after his MVP season. I don't think I've seen many MVPs all of a sudden, struggle to start the season. But I do think the Browns will give a tougher matchup than I'll probably give them credit for. Like you said, they're probably on paper the most talented team name-wise. They have a lot of high-profile players, but I mean, and until the Ravens face the Titans last year, no one was really slowing them down. I think one of the best games I watched last season was when the Ravens did play the Chiefs. It was like really electric, high-profile. We could see something like that, but I do think the Ravens pull out a win at home against Cleveland.
All right, fair enough. So we're officially halfway through the schedule. We'll start to pick things up even more as we head into the second half. We have a pretty easy pick with our next one. We have the Bills and the Jets. Trent, we're both taking the Bills, I'm assuming, unless you've decided to become a Sam Darnold truther now.
I think the Bills will win, but it may, like I said, I think the Bills maybe only win by 3.
It could be ugly.
It's
It could,
Diggs'
definitely
first.
could be ugly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's more of a battle of defenses again. And, Josh Allen hasn't really played a game yet with Diggs. So I think week 1 for a lot of these new QB wide receiver duos, maybe a slower start.
Yeah, there's a lot of headlines for Buffalo from a pure football perspective and a fantasy football perspective. Obviously, how Diggs and Allen connect will establish the tone for the rest of the season. And we also have to take a look at how do they split carries between Zach Moss and Devin Singletary. That's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Absolutely.
All right, moving on. We have the Las Vegas Raiders versus the Carolina Panthers.
I'm going to go with the Panthers. I'm not very high on the Raiders. I'm not that high on Derek Carr, but there are at least some offensive weapons on the Panthers that I do like. Chris McCaffrey is the best running back in the NFL. Teddy Bridgewater, I do like. I think he does fit well with DJ Moore and how the Panthers are going to build around him. The Panthers defense is okay. It's not great, but I think the Raiders offense is subpar as well. So the matchup for them defensively wise would be manageable, and the Panthers should be able to pull out a win.
Yeah, I really loved what Matt Rule and the Carolina Panthers did this offseason. They addressed their needs on the offensive side of the ball in free agency, bringing in Teddy Bridgewater to replace Cam Newton, bringing in my opinion, a pretty solid number 2 receiver in Burner, Robbie Anderson. They still have Curtis Samuel. DJ Moore is a guy that both Trent and I are high on, and then obviously enough's been said about Christian McCaffrey. And then they took to the draft and they went all defense. So they understood that was an area that they needed to address. Obviously, these are young players. We have no idea how they're going to play in their rookie year on the NFL stage. I do think that they beat this Raiders team comfortably. Besides Josh Jacobs, Trent, I'm with you. I'm not high on anyone on this Las Vegas team.
Yeah, I just don't think Josh Jacobs can really do it himself. I think Henry Ruggs could have a good season, but it's a lot of these younger guys that, week 1 they may just struggle after this weird COVID and everything that's happened. It's just maybe a weird game for a lot of these younger guys.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, moving on. We have the Chargers and the Bengals, the revamped Bengals, Trent. Are you giving them their first win of the season in week 1?
I think this is going to be probably the most interesting game because you're going to get a rookie Joe Burrow versus I don't know when the last time Tyrod Taylor started a game.
I think it was with the Browns a couple of years ago.
Yeah, as I said, it's been a couple years. I'm actually going to go with the Bengals in this one. I think that they do get their first win. I think that Joe Burrow he's got the winning mentality. We've talked about him a lot in the past. He's got a bunch of weapons around him, and I don't know. I think that the Chargers are going to have a decent season, but it's going to be hard for Tyrod Taylor to all of a sudden just be back in the NFL as a starter. And Phil Rivers has been there forever, so having a new quarterback in that system may be difficult to work around.
Yeah, I'm actually going to agree with you there. Maybe it's recency bias, and obviously there are a lot of big names on Cincinnati this year. I do think that both Joes on the Bengals are going to have a great game. Burrow and Mixon, who just got that contract extension. AJ Green appears to be healthy. Hopefully he can play. They say he's a full go for this game. Obviously Tyler Boyd steps back into that number 2 role, but now he has a chance to really excel against number 2 cornerbacks and defenses. This could be a sneaky good Cincinnati team this year. I think they take this week as well.
Yeah, sneaky good team, but in a tough division.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Now moving on, we have probably the game of the week, Saints Bucks. This game is going to be an absolute shootout. I personally have the Saints winning it. The Saints are my pick to make it to the Super Bowl and probably to win the Super Bowl this year. I think they set the tone for how the year is going to go. Kamara and New Orleans are very close to a contract extension right now that will probably tie him to the organization for another 4 to 5 years, or as Adam Schefter said, throughout his prime, whenever they feel that is. This is the Saints' last year. Drew Brees is probably going to retire after this season. I think he will. He almost retired last year. They had to talk him back into playing this season. I know you're hesitant on that. Obviously, if they make it to the Super Bowl, there's a chance that they don't win. There's a chance that they bring him back for this season. But they have one of the most stacked offensive arsenals in the league. Obviously, so does Tampa Bay. That's why this game is going to be so entertaining. I just think the Saints are more talented on both sides of the football.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think that the Saints, um, def I don't know. It's tough to say that they're more talented on the offensive side. I know that sounds crazy with how good the Saints are, but the Bucks have a lot of weapons and the greatest of all time quarterback. So, but I do agree with you. The Saints do win this game. I think that it's going to be a barn burner. It's going to be high scoring, and it's going to be a one-score game. I think the Saints edge it out just because of the chemistry they have in their offense and their defense. Honestly, the Bucks did a lot of moving around this offseason, and to have Tom Brady's matchup with a brand new team, his first game be against arguably the best team in the conference, kind of tough to win. So I'm going to go with the Saints as well.
It's definitely tough, and as you said, Trent, the Bucks have a lot of moving pieces. Obviously, Brady and Gronk are back together, but Gronk hasn't played in a few years. Brady's in an entirely new situation, and they don't really know what's going on with their running back core yet. Ronald Jones is slated to be the starter. Leonard Fournette is out here posting on social media like he is the guaranteed guy in this offense. They still have LaShawn McCoy, who they think is going to be a change of pace back for them. They have a lot of pieces that they need to figure out, and this is going to be the story of the year for the Buccaneers. Can they put it all together, or is it going to be too late before they end up doing so?
Yeah, you're right on.
All right, so moving on, we have the Cardinals versus the 49ers. This is an interesting game.
Yeah, this definitely is an interesting game. I mean, the 49ers are coming back from a Super Bowl season. I mean, they made it there. They came up just short, but the Cardinals at the same time have arguably probably the most hyped up offense in the NFL right now, just because the addition of Hopkins, Kyler Murray, sophomore year, who you picked, to win MVP this season. There's a lot going for the Cardinals this season. I'm I'm actually gonna ride with them. You know what? I just decided I am gonna ride with them. I think that DeAndre Hopkins just signed a massive contract. He's gonna come out and he's gonna ball out. Kyler Murray is gonna toss in the ball. I think honestly the question mark for me in this game is Kenyon Drake, because he has been in that walking boot. I wanted to go with the 49ers just because of how good their defense is. I dislike their offense a lot, but their defense is top tier. Like, they really stopped everyone last season. They didn't make many changes, um, but I'll stick with that pick. I'll go with the Cardinals getting the upset. Hopefully, Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins have a really strong connection, and Kyler has a ton of targets around him.
Yeah, Trent, I was hoping you would go with the 49ers on this one, so we would disagree. I have the Cardinals upsetting them as well, pretty much for the same reasons you said. Something to keep in mind, as you said, with Kenny Drake, is he did come out in an interview today and said he was only in the walking boot for 2 days, pretty similar to the maintenance he had last season, which is when he was in a walking boot for a couple of days as well. So if that is truly the case, he should be perfectly fine, ready to go for this season. They seem to think that is the case. And as you said, they have a ton of weapons on offense. San Francisco doesn't. It all really depends on how San Francisco's defense will respond. Are they going to be as stout as they were last year when they pretty much carried them to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, no, I agree.
All right, so moving on, we have 3 games left, starting off with the Cowboys and the Rams. Trent, I know you don't like either of these teams this year. I'm going to go with the Cowboys. I think Dak Prescott comes out. He's now in technically a contract year, so I think there's a good chance you see him play his heart out. Amari Cooper, is his a road game, so he's pretty much guaranteed to disappear, as we know. But they have Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, Ezekiel Elliott, who is arguably the best running back in football, besides Christian McCaffrey, obviously. I think this team, just top to bottom, is much more talented than the Rams, who lost Todd Gurley. They lost Brandon Cooks. Cam Akers is going to be their starting running back. We'll see how far he can carry them this year. There's a lot of question marks for Sean McVay's Rams this year. I think the Cowboys go into LA and just win big.
Yeah, I mean, to even start off, you just went big. I am shocked. I was just looking at it, that the Cowboys opened up as only minus 2.5 against the Rams. I mean, the Rams, this is not going to be their season. I do not like the Rams that much. And even with how much I dislike Dak Prescott and a lot of the Cowboys, to be completely honest with you, at least fantasy-wise, I do think the Cowboys win. And I think something to mention is they also made some off-season moves on defense. They made some good additions to really give their team a shot, because you think they have a chance to make a run to the Super Bowl. And if they're going to do that, they definitely have to get wins against teams like the Rams. And I do think they'll probably make a decent statement win, probably win by like, 10 or 2 touchdowns, something around there.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you there. All right, we're down to 2 left. We have the Steelers and the Giants. Why don't we just move on to the last one, Trent? Unless you think the Giants are going to pull off this upset, I have the Steelers pretty confidently. I think Big Ben's going to come out hot. I love Juju. Deontay Johnson appears to be ready to go. James Conner's healthy. This defense is very tough. TJ Watt is my favorite defensive player of the year candidate this season. I think there's a lot to like about Pittsburgh this year, but at the same time, there's some stuff to like about the Giants as well. Daniel Jones appears to be ready to break out. Saquon Barkley looks like he's ready to bounce back. They have a pretty underrated receiving core, I'd say. Evan Engram, if he can stay healthy. On the offensive side of the ball, this team has a lot of talent. They just have not been able to put it together yet. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this one.
I mean, I am going to go with the Steelers, but it's actually not for the Steelers offense. It is for the Steelers defense. I think they match up pretty well against the Giants, Giants offense to Steelers defense. I'm not sure how well Big Ben's going to do in his first real game back. I think he probably will throw 2 picks in the first couple of drives. And that's just how it is getting back in the NFL. And he's thrown a lot of picks in the past. I think he will work back up to a more consistent quarterback, but it is just coming out week 1, full speed game, different players coming at you. I think it's a different beast after not playing for quite a long time. I will go with the Steelers, though. I think their defense will help to contain Saquon Barkley and shut down Daniel Jones and his targets.
Yeah. All right. So moving on, we're into the final game of the week. It's a tough one. Broncos Titans. Something to keep in mind is I'm pretty sure we just got confirmation that Von Miller is out for the year. It's really tough for the Broncos, who Trent and I are still really high on. Hopefully Bradley Chubb can stay healthy and carry this defense to an extent. They still have a pretty solid core from a talent perspective. Obviously, that's a big loss for them as well. Trent, who do you have winning this final game?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Titans, and honestly, a big factor in this is it's flashback memories from seeing them beat the Patriots and knowing what they can do. Now, I'm not that high on the Titans this season. I'm still not very high on Ryan Tannehill. You and I have we've never been a fan of Ryan Tannehill. We know what he hasn't, what he has done, and it hasn't been good in the past. But Derrick Henry is he's an unstoppable force. He's a moving boulder. And it's tough to stop a moving boulder, to say the least. But I think the Titans' offense is good. We know the Titans' defense is also very good. You and I both love the Broncos' very young offensive core, good defense. Von Miller is gonna be a factor not having him this season. But I think the Titans do edge it out after they're making that deep run last season.
Yeah, my brain says Titans, but I'm gonna go with my heart. Go with the Broncos for pretty much the reasons you just said. They have a really talented offensive core. I know you're probably higher on Drew Lock than I am this year, but I do think he's going to have a great year. Melvin Gordon is something to keep an eye on. He was named co-starter with Philip Lindsay, so they said that they're both going to get a lot of touches from a fantasy perspective. Definitely something to keep an eye on there. He was battling a rib injury throughout training camp, but he appears to be healthy, ready to go for this game. I just think that the Titans, if the Broncos are able to just somewhat contain Derrick Henry, I don't think Tannehill can win them this game. So for that reason alone, I'm going to go with them. And, that's going to wrap up week 1, our predictions. So looking through this, what did we disagree on, Trent? We disagreed on the Falcons, Seahawks, the Packers, Vikings, the Browns, Ravens. That's 3. No, you have the Saints, Bucks. So I think that might be it. Yep, that's it. So
go for it.
I know that's it. We disagreed on 3 games, so that's definitely going to be an interesting one to highlight those 3 when we watch this back.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to post our picks, put them out there and keep a running tally of how we do this season. It'll be interesting to see, who's seeing the board better.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely, as you said, something we're going to keep track of. And that is going to be a wrap on this episode of the Rollout. Trent, as always, great talking with you. Great getting your opinions on some of this stuff. And we'll be back next week with another episode to kind of recap our picks and then go over it again for next week.
Sounds good.
Stay safe out there, everyone.